Good afternoon. My name is Bong PALOMA. I'm your moderator for this track. Welcome to the Next Gen CEO Web Conference 2021. You are now attending track number 2, The Good Enterprise. On this track, we have a speaker from NXTLVL Farms, whose goal is to revolutionize farming industry in the Philippines using software, hardware, local talents, and resources. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome the co-founder of NXTLVL Farms, Mr. DERYA TANGHE. Over to you, DERYA.
We built Future Fresh because we saw a problem that needed fixing. And that was really availability of really good produce all year round, 365 days a year, and no frills. Basically buying produce from someone you know that won't let you down. What can we do to make that a reality?
The environment is changing, and with this change in environment, we're seeing that it's harder to grow crops outside, and we have to use technologies that benefit our current situation here in the Philippines. We're giving the plants exactly what they need to grow.
So we provide each crop the lighting hours or duration that they need, the nutrient that they want to eat, the temperature requirement that they need, air circulation, and most importantly, the carbon dioxide in a correct quantity, all in an automatic system.
Because we have greater control over the processes, our produce is an experience of innovation at work. For example, we eliminate the risk of adverse weather. There's minimal wastage due to quick harvest and its close proximity to distribution centers.
One thing that's very important here is we're able to contact our customers, ask them what they're looking for and what's not available in the market. We are able to roll out different varieties of product quite fast and quite efficiently.
Basically, we want to make sure that there's no need to import when you can just buy locally and farm locally. This is something that the Philippines can benefit from and that customers want and that people want. And we make sure that the moment that the produce is packed, that it's already going out the door. Arable land, as the years go on, is going to be less and less available. Urban indoor farming, and what we do here at Future Fresh, doesn't require that. We can still essentially feed just as much as any farm can, plus a lot more, with much less space.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome. My name is DERYA, co-founder of NXTLVL Farms, also known as Future Fresh. I will share the presentation now. I wanted to share with you all that video just to get an easy sense of what we do. Thought it would be simpler to do it that way. So let me introduce you to what we do, but also at the same time, just since we're going to spend quite a number of minutes together, I want you to kind of remember 4 things when you think about, I guess, what we're doing here about vertically indoor farming here in the Philippines. So one is food security, vertically integrated business, and at least 100 times. So those are 3 things that I just want you to step away from this presentation. So to get into it, we're here to really help what we see as the Philippines' agricultural woes. We developed and decided to create NXTLVL Farms about 3 years ago to really help address the issues of food security that we see in the Philippines. That's basically being caused by an increasing urban population, worsening and more difficult climate conditions that are being faced, as well as just infrastructure complications that exist. So what we've done is been able to create distinct advantages compared to when you look at traditional outdoor farming, especially when you're looking at yield, efficiency, food quality, safety, land usage and environmental sustainability. So at the heart of what we do is always sustainability. We hate food waste. Generally, it's been dictated that a third of global food supply chain is actually lost in transit, which is a disgusting and sad figure. In the Philippines as well, you're getting fresh produce wastage from 40 to 70%. And that mainly boils down to the poor supply chain that happens in infrastructure. Of course, where the farms need to be located compared to the end customers in the cities. And food travels kind of on average over 300 miles for leafy greens here in the Philippines. So when you're looking at all of that compounded, it's over 435,000 metric tons in the vegetable supply that's a deficit in the Philippines, already mentioned. So we were here to solve this. We wanted to provide high quality produce. We wanted to make sure that produce is accessible all year round and in a consistent way and at a quality that hasn't been really seen before. So we're here to solve the agricultural challenges that we saw. I think overall, globally, you see that the indoor farming market is growing quite extensively and quickly. But for us, we really wanted to make something innovative, locally homegrown technology here in the Philippines. And that's what we've done here with Future Fresh. So just to continue on this sense of food security, which is important, there is an agricultural land gap that exists. Basically, your gap in arable land that's expected in 2050. That's the equivalent of two Indias put together in terms of size. So that's scary. You also generally are looking at least a 55% calorie gap by 2050 as well, with the amount of produce that's being produced. And as things are and people are moving more towards a nutrient-based, call it diet or consumption habit, there has to be more supply, more new supply being added to the market. So when you look at kind of traditional farming versus how we do it, right? What makes us so consistent is because we have a full environmental control in terms of what we do and the systems and our systems themselves. So we can basically almost replicate best seasons historically in centuries of like the best grown basil in Italy inside one of our systems to make sure that, well, Filipinos, for instance, get access to some of the best basil that's ever been grown. We have weather protection because we are in a controlled indoor environment. So for us, everything is set in indoors. It's not a semi-greenhouse. It's not open. It's a fully controlled environment. People may know us. We started with taking containers and shipping containers and essentially reverse engineering those through many, many renditions. We're on our fourth innovation now of that technology and turning that into a really almost hyper-productive farm. What's important as well is due to the way that we grow, you don't add any pesticides. Everything is, in a sense, biosecure. It's a very clean environment. The produce doesn't need sprays of any kind. And we're not wasting arable land, which going back is definitely a problem that's happening. And it's one that also exists in the Philippines. We also use, from a sustainability metric, a lot less water. So in terms of the water, we use about 95% less water and 99% less land than a traditional farm. And most importantly for us is the 365-day availability of the product. Whereas definitely it's very difficult for farmers always. You are getting more and more notices of their harvest being wiped out due to not only limited seasonal production, but also just because of climate and storms and the like. So what we've done is reimagined and in a way captured the entire fresh produce value chain. So just kind of listing out here what I think sets us apart. And when we're talking about a good enterprise, I think why it's important. So the tech is our own. It's a localized proprietary growing system. Our LEDs as well, I'll get into in the next slide, are also quite an achievement. For us, we see the product as being best in class because the shelf life is extraordinary. Generally, always the main comment that we get back from customers is the produce lasts weeks. weeks, not days, from what they're used to. And this is also produce that is generally imported. So for our positioning in the market, we do see ourselves as essentially the only vertically integrated indoor farm in the Philippines, due to basically our retail brand and having a very large omni-channel presence, basically. But we're able to provide really high quality produce that would generally have to be imported, can't be grown locally year round, 365 days. So that's our focus. We're focusing on the high value crops. We're focusing on produce that generally has not been available year round here. And then essentially just adding adding supply to products that could not be grown year round. That's important for us. So we're in a position to grow now, and our commitment to the Philippines is really to help cultivate also the next generation of farmers. So training farmers to also incorporate next gen, incorporating technology into agri. And so for us, I think we're growing kind of a powerhouse of talent here in the field of urban farming, and data science and just customer experience as a whole. So in terms of the technology, right now we are still using containers, although we are currently in our fundraising rounds and we are looking to expand and also move towards outside of containers, taking what we've learned and making something even more modular outside of the confines of a shipping container. So right now we're on our 4th generation growing system, supported in a way by our own data and IP, data management. And right now we're in a position to really scale in difficult climate environments like tropical urban areas or even islands, to allow for the best yield efficiency. I did want to mention in terms of our grow lights, obviously there's kind of an assumption of, can LEDs replace the sun? How is that even possible? How is that a thing? Well, we're on actually beyond now our 10th generation of grow lights. So we actually customize it ourselves. It's our own IP. And yeah, I mean, it really does replicate the sun. If you spend enough time in one of the indoor farms, you'll probably walk out with a tan. So it's been able to produce certain wavelengths and do what's really optimal for the plants, as maybe you also heard in the video. So for us as well, we try to localize everything as much as possible. Going back in terms of efficiency, there's always a concern really regarding how much energy are you using to farm your produce, right, versus traditional farming. Well, truth be told, when you're looking at growing at least 100 times more productivity and yield out of your farm, and with the cost of electricity actually going down, and because of the efficiency of the LEDs, which consume the most amount of power, you're looking on a track that's going to become basically more and more energy efficient as time passes, and it's actually getting there at quite a rapid rate. We also look at incorporating biodegradability in all that we do. So our packaging is fully biodegradable, and we also use local grow mediums that are biodegradable and kind of our own nutrient mix as well. So what has all of this led to for the Philippines? So really combating food security. We've achieved nearly 100% sell-through rate, which is extraordinary the past 2 years, across our sales channels. So we started with restaurants, moved into retail stores, and then also decided to create our online platform for customers to achieve our produce direct to home. That was actually done also before the pandemic, and then the pandemic actually in a way accelerated, I think, buying produce online and getting acquainted and familiar with that. And now we're obviously looking to the hospitality industry and others. With our 2 farms alone, we don't come anywhere near close to catering to all of this in Metro Manila. Hence why we're going out to fundraise now to look at building at least 5 more sites, 5 more farms to accompany these. And for us as well, what's important is going back into how long and how far food travels here, especially in the fresh produce section in the Philippines of at least 300 miles. We've been able to narrow that down to an average of 12 kilometers from basically harvest to delivery point and drop off. Also a reason why our produce lasts so long. But it's always for us on our approach. Out west, you generally have really large, massive indoor farms, almost like gigantic factories. For us, we're looking at more spread out, taking a decentralized approach and really getting most efficiency in looking at around 1,500 square meters or less of an indoor farm scattered across the city to be able to maintain that shorter distance for the produce to reach the end customer. So right now we have 23 different products, always adding more. In terms of what sets the products apart, well, we do actually get it taste optimized. People don't generally believe this, but you can actually manipulate, almost hack the growing of produce thanks to our systems. So by hacking, I mean you could actually adjust the taste of lettuce, arugula, texture, the size. There's so many different parameters that you can control that actually affect the end product quite drastically. So for instance, our arugula has probably gone through over 5 renditions at least to reach the point now where I think it's generally acceptable to the Filipino palate, basically not being as intensely peppery as you would find it in Italy, for instance. So what we always do express is that the focus is always on same day harvest and delivery. We don't like food waste, and we want to make sure that everything that we harvest actually goes out that same day for delivery, whether it's in any of those channels I mentioned. So same day harvest and delivery is important. We always sell by grams in terms of it being 100% consumable product. So there's no roots, there's no intense kind of cleaning and throwing away when you receive the product. It's always delivered with no bad leaves. And yeah, for us, it's all about that shelf life as well. Looking at it lasting at least 3 times as long, even from the imported products, but in generally even longer than that, weeks. In terms of what we've been able to achieve, so at first, as with any startup, you're not sure if this is going to work. You do all you can. Our customers going to accept the product. So really happy to say that for us, an important metric that we track is always product to market fit, as any business should. And for us, we using kind of the Sean Ellis test that generally says if you have 40% product to market fit, you've achieved it quite well. A comparable is Slack is at 50%. So we've achieved 80% product to market fit, or almost 80%, sorry, 78% in the Philippines. And I think for us now, there's an affinity growing to our consumer facing brand. Not sure if you can read this, but I've attached some kind of real customer testimonials. There's a lot of these scattered around, and it's an experience that people are surprised by. Generally, it's the shock factor of how fresh the greens look, then it's how they taste, then it's also how long it lasts. So it's essentially building a moat around this service that we're offering for people to know that if they really want the highest quality and the freshest product, that Future Fresh is always here, available 365 days a year. Wanted to mention also that we're moving into our next product expansions, keeping that association as a healthy brand. You know, for us, it's always like incorporate vegetables or incorporate nutrient-dense products in your diets as you can over fast food, offering that. So these are kind of 2 new product channels that we're launching into. One is mushrooms. So we actually started our mushroom lab, growing some gourmet quality mushrooms, your wood varieties, those that you generally won't find in the Philippines, as well as going into our ready-to-eat salad business. So we've seen that there's a large unmet demand for high quality salads in the Philippines and Southeast Asia. And I think the differentiating factor of that is quality and freshness of ingredients. So this is something we're actually going to be looking to launching next week. So aside from just throwing the ingredients and selling the ingredients to customers, here's an easier way to consume Future Fresh. One that's call it less frills or not as much manpower required to make your meal, as it's already ready to eat. So I wanted to mention something else important for us is job creation, right? In terms of being a good enterprise and even as corporate CSR or sustainability, people is a big factor of that. So we do have a talented team, but what I wanted to kind of express here was there's a huge enthusiasm regarding people from traditional farming, traditional agriculture, wanting to move into or experience or better understand what we're doing here at Future Fresh Next Level Farms with this next gen technology. So yeah, we have a team of over 60 employees now across these different departments and growing, but it's been definitely garnering a lot of interest and people who are wanting to work with us, and I think that also speaks a lot in terms of the enthusiasm around indoor urban farming here in the Philippines. So just want to end it regarding, this is probably something everyone's seen a lot with these sustainable development goals from the Philippines. What we do is we do a lot, but going back to in terms of people being one of those, and no poverty, is really creating a lot more jobs as well. It's tough to see that the kind of median age for farmers in the Philippines is well above 60. So is that also sustainable? Philippines used to be known as really a powerhouse of agriculture. So these are, I think, taking the right steps to help the industry regain its footing and acknowledgement globally. So that's important. That's important for us. But we are hitting a lot of the goals of set by the UN and otherwise, maintaining our innovation and technology so that we are always ahead of others, retain that competitive advantage, but also building towards lowering that carbon footprint in everything that we do. So I'll stop there, and I think we can move on to the Q&A.
Thank you, Daria. Very exciting stuff that you have built. From what I understand, this is a local innovation built locally, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We realized quite quickly that you can't just import or bring in technology from overseas because it's just not going to work. I guess put it simple, the engineering, the electricity is going to require a massive rehaul. So that's why, yeah, we decided to make it our own 100% Filipino.
Okay, that's very good to hear. Now, I have another question in terms of the model. You have Future Fresh as your marketing arm, and you have Next Level Farm, which is you know, the company that grows all these vegetables. What is the end goal, the model of Next Level Farm? Are you going to continue building more vertical farms, or are you going to build what you call these boxes filled with your technology, or are you going to franchise this? What is the model that you're looking at in taking this to the market?
Thanks, Bong. Yeah, so great question. On the franchise, we get asked that a lot, but let me first kind of loop it back. For us, it's always being about a vertically integrated business model. So from us designing and creating technology all the way through owning that end-to-end customer relationship. So it's always essentially a feedback loop between all departments in the company, and that just allows us to, well, upgrade, update things, move a lot quicker. So for us, yeah, the goal is really to expand. We have quite an aggressive growth path set out for us, and the reason why we're fundraising right now to build at least 5 more sites in Metro Manila, 5 more farms. Sorry, I keep calling them sites around Metro Manila, and then even looking more nationwide, places like Cebu, large touristic islands as well, and even going international through expansion because. I didn't mention this in the presentation, but in terms of a cost factor, how much we have huge cost efficiencies compared to any of the farms out west as well, due to the way we grow, and we're really proud of that. In terms of franchising, it's been discussed, and it's definitely something that we are not against doing. I think for us too, we need to structure that. We need to see where the interest lies. If it's a franchising of the technology, if it's a franchising of the brand, I think there's a lot of different angles. But right now, we are focused on expanding in our current sites
Mhm.
and looking towards those who have ideas to share in terms of franchising. More than happy to speak about it.
Vertical farming is something that is very popular in developed countries. Countries like Singapore, the US, Europe, and China are into vertical farming. What is your edge against other companies that are ahead of us in terms of doing vertical farming compared to what you have built here locally?
Yeah, so I think it's the vertical integration in terms of the business model. That's definitely one. That's different. You don't see many indoor farms with actually having a consumer facing brand. So we took that step. You also there's a common knowledge that no one's profitable in this industry globally. We're close, so in a short amount of time with not that much money raised. So I think the technology speaks for itself, the cost efficiencies, and that business model. So you also had that consumer facing brand aspect, which I think in its own has its own brand equity, and something else that allows us to expand into other sales channels, building other business like ready to eat salads that we're going into. So I would say that it's really that mobility and also the data led driven technology and operations.
Interesting. Now, in terms of competitiveness, the produce that you sell through your vertical farms, are they competitive compared to what's available in the market? Considering that you have 100 uh, times over yield in a particular square meter land.
Yeah, I think in terms of competitiveness, uh, maybe I could kind of break it down to these three factors of kind of cost, quality, accessibility. So in terms of the cost of the price of our produce, we definitely peg it to be lower than imports because it's always why import, which has its own troubles, especially in COVID times,
Mhm.
in supply chain globally, when you can farm it local and support a local farm. For us, that's important. So we make sure to price our produce under that. Of course, we have certain gross margins. The way that we farm is more expensive than a traditional farm, but at the end of it, you're getting so much more yield and a higher quality product. So the pricing as well, I think we set it at a place that's acceptable by the market. And of course, that changes over times. But for us, the important thing is the standardization of it. So what I mean by that is we're not flipping prices on you month to month, which generally happens here in the Philippines. Sometimes you even see 1,000% price adjustments happen week to week on certain products, and that's just due to the unfortunate circumstances when you have less supply because of typhoons and climate. So for us, we want to make sure that you can always expect this consistency, not just in the quality of produce, but also the price. And then I would say the consistency and the quality aspect. So it's that 365-day availability. So the reason why we want to build more farms is because people get upset when we're sold out, and that's a great problem to
Mhm.
have. And it's kind of just a nudge towards fundraise, grow, expand, build more, so that you're no longer sold out. Because people know that if they need fresh produce, we're here.
Okay, so we have a question from the audience from Paulo here. Apart from vegetables, what other crops can this apply to? Imagine it has to be mostly high valued crops.
Great question. Yeah, so Paulo, for us, it's there is a focus on high value crops, not just because of when you're looking at a business sense or margin sense, but also those were just lacking in the market. So basically, growing non-native plants is the focus. Uh, we are looking at those other. You can grow price strawberry. You can grow berries. You could do flowers. You could do quite an extensive range of produce. What would not really make sense is your root crops, such as like potatoes, beets, carrots. Those that I think traditional farming is doing a really good job on. So that's where we kind of set a dividing line.
Have you invented the kind of LED that allows you to grow medicinal plants that are quite popular in the US, where they have legalized these medicinal plants?
It's always the first question we get asked, surprisingly. Well, honestly, that industry helped propel indoor farming because I think because of that, that's when they really took LEDs and started growing that indoors for medicinal purposes. And then it kind of transferred to taking it to, well, call it legal produce, non-medicinal as well for daily consumption. But yeah, it can definitely apply to that. It can apply to plants in general. The LEDs that we've come up
So
with.
every plant requires a different type of lighting, right? Is that correct? Is that how the
Yeah,
technology works?
when you go into each of our growing environments, so right now, if you in our shipping containers, like our one farm has 16. Every time you open the door and walk into one, it's separated by different products. It's like you're walking to a different environment.
Hmm.
Some have higher humidity, may feel more like a colder climate as well, like as if you're not in the Philippines walking in there. So yeah, each climate is actually set differently for each produce, as well as the lighting spectrum, the amount of CO2, the temperature, the humidity. There's so many factors to control. And essentially, you want to open that door uh, as less as possible because that is like a perfect environment set for the plant.
I have a very interesting question to ask because 5 years ago, this LED technology that they use for vertical farming sort of been fully developed in other parts of the world. And the fact that you have developed your own LED technology, what led you to do that? Is it because of the cost is very prohibitive to buy products from like China or US or Europe that led you to develop your own LED technology, which cost a lot in terms of R&D, right?
Yeah, well, let me clarify. Sorry, we do work with manufacturers. We don't manufacture the LEDs ourselves, but we customize the specs of it. So in the end,
Okay.
it's the IP because the specs
Okay.
really matter, and the reason for that as well versus starting to manufacture these is because the tech actually moves quite fast, similar to like your computer technology or solar panels. It's in that kind of direction. So yeah, we fine tune them to just be the most optimal in terms of your wavelengths of light and your growing spectrum.
There's a lot of tech involved in this kind of farming. You have data science, you have AI, you have IoT, you have LEDs, you have all kinds of things. And this is really the kind of farming technique that most millennials and Gen Z would like to get into. If you are going to encourage them to go into farming, I think this is the technology that would, entice them to go into farming as opposed to doing the traditional way. But I really don't know. This morning we had a very interesting session also with a lady, Cherry, who promotes innovative way of farming, doing it in a multi-level dwelling approach and helping them and educating them into the right techniques. No? But you have been doing this for almost 2, 3 years now. Is that correct?
Yep.
And what has been your experience during the pandemic with your two farms?
Yeah. Just on your first comment too, I think there's definitely a mix of both that's needed on the traditional and kind of the indoor farming sense. I think that is important in the Philippines, and both have their place.
Please.
For COVID, I mean, the good about it is that we increased a lot of our well, the farm was already super clean and sterile, but even more safety measures put in place, just not just within the growing facility, but also outside with our delivery fleet and riders, anybody who enters the farm, and it led us to do that. It also saw a big acceleration and jump. So talking 80/20, we were looking at 80% of revenue before coming from supermarkets. And then what ended up happening was a switch going into our online sales channel. So really achieved, remarkable growth in 2020. Sales were up more than 40 times from the online channel. So it's really, I think, led people to explore from an e-commerce perspective, but also, you know, making food at home, getting fresh ingredients in a new way. We'll see if that trend. I think that trend is here to remain, but I'm sure people are also itching to go out. You see more foot traffic in the supermarkets now as well.
If there are entrepreneurs that are watching, next generation entrepreneurs that are interested in your technology, that they want to set this up north, down south, in the Visayas area. Are you open to doing partnership with these entrepreneurs?
Yeah, we're open to doing partnership. I think for us, we'd still like to run it. The reason being is because there's still more and more gains to be had and for us to figure out. So I think I mentioned in the presentation, but so right now I think we're very good. We know how to work with containers. Now we're going to take that technology and move it into something more modular. So we want to do that first, and then yeah, definitely. I mean, I think these partnerships are important. How can we scale? How can we move quicker outside of also Metro Manila?
We have another question from Paulo here. What is your biggest cost component? Sounds like there is a lot of electricity involved, and considering that Philippines has one of the highest per kilowatt hour cost in terms of electricity.
Yeah, for commercial, I wouldn't say it's not necessarily as bad or as high, but yeah, I mean, no hiding it. Electricity is the biggest really cost factor in terms of what we do. But that being said, as well, you're seeing that trend of more efficiencies. So being able to do more with less electricity. It's already happened just in kind of the 2 years that we've moved from sites, even with the LEDs becoming more efficient, requiring less energy, because that's the biggest source draw of power are the grow lights, because again, you have so many in each growing system. So yeah, that
Yeah,
electricity is a big one.
talking about offsetting or mitigating the cost of electricity, have you given it a thought of using solar power as a way to power your farms? And the cost of solar has gone down significantly, and it continues to go down. So, what are your thoughts on putting solar panels on your farms?
It has, but it's still a gigantic financial drag in certain ways. When you also look at us, I think also Metro Manila itself isn't the most ideal place to have solar powers be at their most efficient. Now, if you're looking perhaps more on the islands, there may be more of a case for it. But for us as well, when you're looking at such a short payback periods for our indoor farms, it really ties the question regarding if we want to use solar power or not.
Oh, so what's a typical ROI of this technology? 5 years?
Less.
Less
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I can relate why solar becomes a drag, because it takes also another 4 to 5 years for that to recover. But what's the typical life of your farm?
Well, we guess we haven't come across that yet, but it's, I mean, in terms of payback period, it definitely exceeds that. Uh, I mean, we maintain the farms and there's some maintenance involved, but I mean, they can keep on running. I don't see
Mm.
why not. The only change is that the way that we grow and we're just going to be coming and getting more and more efficient would be essentially maybe updating or upgrading the old farms with newer technology. But
Yeah, because
it's definitely here to stay.
if the cost of maintaining it is not very expensive and you can run that for 15 years, yeah, so using solar panel will not be a financial drag if you're looking at operating it over a longer period of time. But if you're looking at a 5 year period, it does impact your cash flow.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Another question from Carol. Do you see yourself as an agriculture company or an online retail company or a tech company or both?
Okay, good question. Yeah, I mean that would come across, right? So with this vertical integration, we have an e-commerce business. We have a technology component tech company that we own with our growing systems, and agriculture is one. So it is a blend of ag and retail. So I would say ag tech and retail exactly play a role, but I think that they also go hand in hand. You can focus just on agriculture, but for us, we see an opportunity and an advantage and a uniqueness by combining the two.
Do you have aspirations of bringing this technology to other parts of the world?
Yeah, definitely. We have spoken with some people overseas as well as far as Middle East, and there is a definitely an interest, especially an interest in places with with harsh climates. That that is very inconsistent as well year round. So for us, our focus right now is really on the Philippines, but looking regionally. So looking at the other countries in Southeast Asia that have similar conditions to the Philippines, similar conditions being supply chain woes, infrastructure issues,
Typhoons.
traffic, also distance, typhoons. So we know that these systems work well in this kind of environment. So I would say reach that area first, low hanging fruit, so to speak.
Okay, thank you very much, Daria. And let's see if we have more questions from the audience. Meron pa ba? Yeah, we still have time for questions. And anything else you want to add to our audience?
I would say just keep a lookout for what we're doing. There's a lot of exciting things happening right now around Next Level Farms and Future Fresh. A lot of new product releases, a lot of more videos and content coming out to give more insight and visibility into how we grow and what we grow and how we do things. Because I think that's always important for the end customer and others to understand too. So just to mention, we're essentially the farm you can talk to. We want to build a community not only of buyers but those interested in agriculture. So you can always reach out to us, and we're there to answer questions and work with you or build something together. So come to see us as the farm you can speak with.
Thank you very much. And there you go. Next Level Farms, Future Fresh. Go to their website, try their fresh produce, and enjoy the fresh products of Next Level Farm. And we would like to see you succeed in this venture, Daria. And we hope to hear from you more. Thank you.
Thanks, Bong. Thank you.